everyone. Welcome back to Susan Dawn Ascension Connections, part of Susan Dawn Spiritual Connections, and welcome to our brand new 2025 year ahead channeling and reading. I'm so excited to be doing this because we do this every year and it never ceases to amaze me. It never ceases to blow me away. The impact, the power, and the profound messages that come through to help us navigate and prepare for our year ahead. So the way this is going to be set up is we're going to be doing this in two different parts. So we're going to be starting with the channeling, where we are recapping last year's very powerful year ahead reading and channeling and talking about the transits. And we'll also be talking about 2025 astrological transits and how they are helping to support us, how they are helping us navigate these energies going into this new year. And then we're going to have a separate video, if you're watching this on YouTube, for our reading, in which we are looking at all 4 quarters of this year ahead. We're going to be looking at themes in relationships, family and home life, and career and finances and abundance, and in soul growth. What might be coming through for the collective when it comes to those topics and energies. We'll be looking at the collective challenges for the year ahead, the collective blessings for the year ahead. We'll be getting some guidance and messages from the universe for you to kind of close out that reading. Like I said, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's going to be split into 2 videos, or you can watch the full thing plus past year ahead readings for free in our Ascension Connections portal. It's all in one course bucket, so you can check that out at ascensionconnections.com or navigate to the Ascension Connections portal through our website at susandawnspiritual.com. All right, let us get right into it. We are going to be talking first about 2024. And I know, why are we talking about 2024 if we're already into a new year? Well, there's 2 reasons for that. First, yes, we are in a new calendar year, but it's really important to remember that the calendar year doesn't necessarily follow an energetic timeline. We are all kind of moving into different seasons of our own life with regards to our own personal ascension and our own personal journey. And so different messages might resonate at different times. As you guys know, all of my readings are meant to be timeless because they are so layered. They might resonate with you at different times along your journey. Even if you listened and it resonated once, going back and listening to them again might activate something within you, might call to something deeper within you, have deeper resonance for your journey, for your inner life, for your nurturing that soul self. And so the same is with these collective readings, these year ahead readings. Even though we are talking about 2024 or 2025, it might have deeper resonance based on where you are in your specific journey. The other thing is that the year doesn't truly begin until spring, or in the southern hemisphere it will be technically fall, but even though we talk about a collective calendar year as beginning January 1st, it doesn't truly begin until March and April, which is the beginning time of the zodiac, the beginning time of our astrological support. And that brings forth with it cycles, opening and closing. As you have endings, you have beginnings simultaneously. As you have what looks like a destruction of the old, you also have the creation of the new. What our ascension journey really shows us and teaches us is that we have the capacity to hold more than one truth, to hold more than one reality. And our ascension journey, our inner work, our healing work helps us to expand that capacity to hold both existing truths and existing realities. That multiple truths and multiple realities can happen at once. That it's not black or white, it's not left or right, it's not up or down. It is all things all at once. And rather than getting caught up in the nuances of that duality, is about seeing things from a bigger perspective, from the soul's perspective, from looking at it in the middle way, taking that middle path, that higher ground, if you want to call it that too, that bigger perspective, looking at all things as possible. So when we are moving into this energetic new year, it's all about renewal, rebirth, all about rejuvenation, all about being reborn. But that also comes from reflection. And that's also why we want to take a look back at the previous year, because that energy is still transitioning and following us, or flowing with us into this new year. We carry all of that energy with us into the new year. Now, everything that we say has context, everything that we say has nuance. So, we're going to put it into the context of our full teachings, of our full understanding of the journey and of ourselves, right? And so when we say that you carry it with you, you release what you need to release as you're ending cycles, as you are releasing versions of yourself that no longer align to you. And that could play out in your physical world too. Relationships, location changes, job changes, or career changes, the way that you view yourself, beliefs, perspective. So it can play out in a number of different ways, but you're also always going through rebirths. It's not just one awakening, it's not just one ascension journey. You go through layers and layers and layers and layers of it. And that's the blessing of your spiritual life. That's the blessing of this awakening and ascension journey, is that it's not just one thing. We're constantly going into deeper levels and understandings of ourselves and of the universe around us, and even of humanity too, because our ascension shows us that we are the bridge between our human self and the expression of that human self and our spiritual essence, our soul self. And we are bridging those two. Again, that middle way, that middle path. And so allowing ourselves to kind of reflect allows us to recognize that we are still carrying the wisdom of those experiences, the knowledge of those experiences, sometimes even the energy of those experiences with us into the new. And it might also take some time, if you are releasing some of the old that you no longer align with, it might take some time for that to play out, for that to unfold in your life. And so it's helpful and healthy to reflect, not to attach to old stories or old cycles, but to reflect and say, oh, okay, this is how I learned. This was an opportunity for me to learn. This was an opportunity for me to expand and grow, and this is how far I have come. So we're going to start with the recap of 2024's channeling, and you can feel free to check out the links of interest below, or the 2024 year ahead reading wherever you're watching this, to get even deeper into the messages. The most important part of our 2024 year ahead channeling was the significance of Pluto transitioning into the sign of Aquarius. It had been in the sign of Capricorn, which is all about structure. It was all about, I don't want to say playing by the rules, because when we, especially in the spiritual community, we can look at playing by the rules as something that is kind of frowned upon. I guess you could say we can look at it as something that is like restrictive, but the Capricorn energy of playing by the rules is what gives us structure, what gives us that container. In the writing world, for example, as a writer myself, in the writing world, there's a common refrain that you have to know the rules in order to break them. And that's this kind of energy that Capricorn gives us and gives off. And Capricorn moving into Aquarius specifically, you have to know the rules in order to break them. And Capricorn is what gives us that structure, that discipline, that routine that is healthy for us. And it's only once we are anchored into that we allow ourselves to flow away from that we allow ourselves the flexibility, that we allow ourselves to have the discernment of when it is healthy to break the rules, for example. So Capricorn is a very structural energy. It's ruled by Saturn, and Saturn likes discipline. Saturn likes structure. It's all about structure. And when we're talking about these sacred unions, for example, which is part of the work that we do, the masculine and the feminine energy, you having both within you, it's your inner masculine that has the container with which to hold the feminine energy, which is that flow, which is that flexibility. And so Capricorn wants us to have that structure, that container, to be able to hold that energy. That energy is not restrictive, although in a distorted sense, it could be seen as such. It's not meant to be restrictive. It is meant to be a container to hold, lightly hold the energy so that you know when to flow, you know when to express, you know when to break the rules, right? And so Capricorn has been showing us also in context of structure what is working and what isn't working, and we're seeing that play out now with regards to the global collective in our society, in structures like education, in the medical fields, insurance fields, in what else, in the justice system. We're seeing this play out in systems, what has been working and what isn't working. And so moving into Aquarius, we had this kind of um, back and forth energy in 2024, because Pluto, which is all about transformation, all about the depth, all about bringing anything that is unconscious to the light. So you can see how our individual ascension journeys is literally playing out in the collective too, which I find endlessly fascinating. How our physical world reflects the inner work that we've been doing, reflects the individual ascension and spiritual awakening, that journey that we've been on. The collective is now playing that out too. The collective will always have a little bit of a lag behind your individual experience, but that's just because it takes a lot of collective energy to shift. And your inner world, your inner work, your individual journey, the more people who are doing their individual work, the more people who are experience their own individual ascension and spiritual awakening, and who are doing that higher level work, connecting to your higher self, connecting to higher frequencies of love and compassion and empathy, those who are embodying that has a ripple effect on everything around us, and that ultimately will have an impact on the collective energies too. So that's why there's always kind of a collective lag, because the physical world is reflective of the inner world and not the other way around. So with Capricorn and Aquarius, we were seeing kind of this back and forth, because Pluto was moving into Aquarius and then it retrograded back into Capricorn, kind of like a last call to clear out all of that energy, anything that still needed to be removed, anything that still needed to be cleared out, anything that still needed to be brought to the light, for example. And so it finally shifted into Aquarius this year, at the end of the year, in the fall. And so it's going to be in Aquarius until 2043, which it will then shift into the sign of Pisces. And we're going to get into that too. So what we had channeled was that Pluto in Aquarius is all about authenticity and community. Again, Capricorn likes structure, and it showed us what is working and what isn't. It also showed us how to have a sense of structure within ourselves, how to have a sense of discipline within ourselves and discernment, and how to have a container in which to hold this energy. Capricorn is the sea goat. It is also a bridge between the human self and the spiritual self. It is, you can kind of see it having footing in the physical world, but also very connected to the spiritual world. And so it showed us how to be that bridge. So Aquarius, moving into Aquarius, Aquarius is all about, again, authenticity, all about humanitarianism, all about innovation, all about doing things in a new way. So with Capricorn, again, that structure, what is working, what isn't working, Aquarius comes through and says, here's how we can shift it for the better. What isn't working, here's how we can shift it for the better. So we have seen some destruction, and that is leading to creation. We have seen some endings, and that is leading into beginnings. Again, things happening simultaneously. It's both being held at once. As endings are occurring, there's also creation. As there's destruction, there's also creation. There's endings and beginnings all happening at the same time. And so we're literally seeing this play out in our collective reality. I'll get into some examples. But I do want to talk about the age of Pisces really quickly first. So the age of Aquarius is here. Pluto in Aquarius is here until 2043. And then we're moving into Pisces. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It is all about embodiment of that wisdom. And so it's rooted in spirituality, it's connected to divine truths, it is that Christophia consciousness. And when I was tuning into this energy to prepare for this channeling, what I was getting was that the Capricorn, Pluto in Capricorn, which is a 20-year cycle, 19 to 20-year cycle, was all about showing the crevices, showing the cracks in the lining, right? Showing where all the holes are in our society as a collective, in our spirituality too. It is showing us where, again, things are working or things aren't working anymore. And that's where Aquarius comes in over these next 20 years and shakes things up and says, you know what? It hasn't been aligned because it hasn't been authentic. It hasn't been aligned with the best for humanity. And we've seen that. We see in our reality right now a lot of greed, a lot of corruption, but those things have been there. We're just shining light on that now. We have been shining light on that now. And Aquarius is the one that creates in order to bring it back into alignment. So then Pisces energy is the embodiment of that. So you can say that the Capricorn, Pluto in Capricorn, these past 19, 20 years, has been more about like a spiritual awakening. If we're going to use it in the context of the language that we teach here. All about the spiritual awakening, the initial awakening. And then Pluto in Aquarius is the ascension journey, the deeper dives. How can we shift? How can we change ourselves? How can we do the inner work that has an impact? How can we shift our energy so that we're shifting our reality? How can we create something new? What are the beliefs that we're holding? What is truly authentic to us? How are we in service to humanity, to others? How are we in service to our spiritual truth? These are all the questions that Aquarius brings up, but it's more than that. Aquarius will also take action on that. And again, we're seeing that play out. And then Pluto in Pisces is all about the embodiment of that, rooting into that divine truth, rooting into that spiritual connection, really claiming that wisdom and utilizing that wisdom for the benefit of not only your individual life, but for all. Really connected to the humanity of all. And that is what the Christophia consciousness is all about. It is about the embodiment of those higher frequencies and all that wisdom that you have learned and applying it now. We're going to see everything really anchor in the next couple of years. Well, it might take a while, but when Pluto moves into Pisces, that's when we're going to really see it anchor in. That's not to say that, right now in current times, it's going to be all chaos and all destruction. Remember, as we experience chaos, there's also order. As we experience destruction, there's also creation. As we experience endings, there's also beginnings. And so rather than looking at, current times as just chaos or just destruction or just these endings of the world and the life that we knew, keep tuned within yourself at what you are creating, at the ripples that keep extending further and further and further, at the community. Community is going to be the most important aspect of our life, our spiritual life and our human life going forward these next few years. So 2024 was all about seeds being planted, coming to fruition, and the focus was on community and reform. And we also channeled that we would be seeing uprisings and protests that were starting small, and we absolutely did see that. What we had channeled was that these protests and uprisings would bring more unity, even though it might not look it. It might look very divisive on the surface. It's actually that divisiveness is actually shining a shadow again on those cracks. some of that Capricorn energy is still going to be trickling over, especially as we are just entering Pluto into Aquarius. It is not, Pluto's a very slow moving planet, and so it's not going to be, oh, Pluto's in Aquarius, everything's shifted. It takes time for that evolution. It takes time for that shift to really be anchored in and seen. And so, um, as we are experiencing and seeing that divisiveness underneath the surface, we're also seeing a unity. We're also seeing a desire for community, a desire for more coming together, a desire for the betterment of all, a desire for equality. We're seeing that play out. And you can literally tune into any social media platform and see that play out in the news, see that play out in what's actually happening in current events. Um, so we also channeled that this was going to gain momentum throughout the year as a blueprint for change. So these uprisings, these protests that we're seeing, and it doesn't have to be protests as in protesting in the streets. Protests can also look like taking to social media, for example, and using your voice and expression of self as forms of activism. It could also be, caring for your neighbors as a form of activism, building more community centers as a form of activism, as a form of protest. There's different types of protest. There's different types of activism, and trust your intuition for what feels right for you. There are people who are more truth seekers and people who are like whistleblowers, for example, and there are those who are boots on the ground in other ways. I think I gave the example last year, but I've given the example recently of how I've come across this woman named Shirley on TikTok. And I'm just so impressed with her because she has such a beautiful heart. Well, now she's in Vegas, but she was on Skid Row. She started out in her own car just handing out meals and warm clothing to the homeless. And that is a form of protest because what is it protesting? It's protesting homelessness. It's protesting people not having safe resources, people not having enough food to eat, people not having warm clothing to wear. It's protesting inequality. It's protesting. We can just go deep into that topic. I'm just gonna pause there for the sake of this video. But it's its own sense of protest. At the same time, it is building community. It is recognizing the humanity in all. And so coming from that place of the deep desire to help, that is authenticity and community coming into that unity consciousness and being an active energy. In the spiritual community, we tend to think that when we're going through our initial awakening or initial ascension, we tend to think that it's only the energy. And I guess you can say that's true. The energy is the most important thing, but energy is nothing without action. You have to act on your intuitive guidance, for example. In our teachings of the sacred union, we talk about the masculine and the feminine energy. And the masculine energy is active, the feminine energy is the energetic. And so the feminine energy will receive that guidance, but the masculine energy has to act on that, not holding themselves back from that. And we're not just talking about two different people, although in sacred partnerships that plays out in two different people in order to recognize the oneness within yourself, the polarities within yourself, so that you bridge those two energies within yourself. You recognize the wholeness and you come into alignment within yourself, and that's how that plays out then in conscious connections. So blueprint for change, these uprisings, these protests, are all focused beneath the surface on community and on reform and on unity consciousness and on helping humanity. And so these small protests, these smaller uprisings, that we've seen have been gaining momentum and getting bigger because they are the new blueprint for activism. They are the new blueprint for change. And over the course of 2024, we did see smaller protests and maybe smaller uprisings be created for as that blueprint and gaining momentum and getting bigger. More people being activists, more people expressing themselves, more people speaking out on injustices. And let me put it very clear, when we're talking about activism, when we're talking about speaking out about injustices and expressing yourself, we're talking from a place of unity and not from a place of causing more division. That's where we are seeing a divide. We're seeing there are some people who are continuing in the rhetoric of hate and division and lower density energies, but we're talking about unity. We're talking about inclusiveness. We're talking about acceptance. We're talking about equality. That's where we're talking about kind of shifting away from injustice, righting the wrongs of injustice. That's what we're talking about. That's the context that we're talking about, just to be perfectly clear. We also channeled 2024 again, planting the seeds of change that we're going to start to see really take root. We also predicted new businesses, new social media platforms, new technology, and innovation, all for the benefit of the all versus the few. In our society, we see that the corruption and the greed and how everything has been focused, especially money, has been focused on the few, and how businesses and technology has been, in essence, catering to the few. Well, that's not what it was for. What they're bringing to me now is something that has always been like my Roman Empire, so to speak. It has been something that I have always felt deeply about, and has always kind of I've always kind of mourned. It's the Library of Alexandria, and how the Library of Alexandria was this Goliath of information. It was this whole resource of information, scholarly and poetry and stories and culture. And it was meant to be this repository of of humanity, so to speak. This repository of humanity, this beautiful place in which people could come together in scholarly pursuit or creative pursuit, or in storytelling and sharing of cultures. And when it burned, we lost so much. In my opinion, in my view, I've always seen the internet as a potential modern day Library of Alexandria. There is so many resources. There is so much information. There is such an ability to learn anything that you want to learn. Anything that you have an interest at, it is literally at the touch of your fingertips. And that has been the greatest gift that technology has given to us. And especially when I was ill, it also was a great way in which I was able to build community. Community has always been something that's been important to me since my earliest blogging days, building community and building friendships. And when I was sick, community is truly what helped me. It's what saved my life and kept me sane, because I was so isolated, because I couldn't get out of bed, and et cetera, et cetera. And so I was so isolated through illness that social media and community truly helped me. And that is one of the greatest blessings that technology gives to us. Even, funny cat videos and animal videos. I have a whole playlist saved of animal videos and fun videos that I'll turn to if I'm feeling down or I'm feeling overwhelmed, and it will just lift my spirits. This is the power of technology. But what's the saying? I think it's from Spider-Man. With great power also comes great responsibility. And unfortunately, we have created also the other end of the spectrum. We have also created a very, it's almost like what we've seen is a burning down of the Second Library of Alexandria. We've seen division. We've seen hateful rhetoric. We have seen Rather than bringing everybody together, we have seen an intent to create more division, to disseminate misinformation and propaganda and corruption, right? We've seen both sides of the spectrum. And what it feels like is a second Library of Alexandria kind of burning down. Now, I believe in humanity. It is something that I will always believe in. And what I see through my lens is, despite what it looks like on the surface, people will always come together. People will always build community. And Pluto in Aquarius has been also highlighting that desire for community, that soul's desire for community, especially as we're going through a collective awakening and ascension. It's highlighting the soul's desire for community, the soul's desire for unity, the soul's desire for coming together versus anything that tries to kind of split us apart. And so, what we are seeing now, those seeds have been planted in 2024 and earlier, but especially 2024 is when we channeled it. But what we're actually beginning to see now is the advent of that, is the fruits of that being born. And so it's coming through in new technology like Blue Sky. Blue Sky is a new social media platform. I'm not personally on it, I'm not active in it, but it is open source, right? It is for the benefit of community versus for the benefit of shareholders and stakeholders and what's it called, stockholders, right? So rather than for the for-profit sector, it is for community. It is for people coming together. We also see that in AI. For example, ChatGPT is also open source. And, there's especially as a creative, I have a love-hate relationship with AI. I don't believe in it when it comes to creative works, but I do believe that it can help us and help us to enhance our knowledge, because I do believe that AI can be reflective of us. And again, it's going to take our level of consciousness, or determine, it's going to depend on our level of consciousness as far as, is it going to be helpful for us or is it going to be to our detriment? There are different timelines that can play out. And it really depends on the level of consciousness that we have and the frequency that we're holding. That's where our energy is important. It's going to depend on all of that with how we use it. How is it that we're going to use it? What is the intention? So, do you see how everything that we learn on our ascension journey applies to our physical reality? It applies to our collective world. It's all about the intention. It's all about the energy that you're holding. It's all about your level of consciousness. How are we gonna utilize these resources? Because everything can be a resource for us. But are we gonna use it to our detriment? Or are we going to use it for our betterment? And that's where having that discernment and being deeply connected to yourself and doing that inner work is going to be so important. The more that you do that inner work, the more that has a ripple effect on everyone and everything. The more you level up in consciousness and expand your consciousness, the more that energy is going to affect others. And one of the most important things to remember is that it is the embodiment, who you are, and how you lead by example. It's not necessarily what you do, but it's the energy you're holding when you do it. It is who you are. What you do is an expression of who you are. What you do actively is an expression of the energy you hold, of the soul that you are. And that's why it's so important to remember that leadership by example. We have representatives, we have leaders, right? But are they embodying unity? Are they embodying love? Are they embodying the higher frequency tenets of patience and compassion and empathy and acceptance? Are they embodying that? That's where it's important to have discernment. True leaders are those who are going to be embodying that unity consciousness, who are going to be embodying love, the frequencies of compassion and empathy and acceptance and who are going to be taking action in that energy. That is leadership by example. It's not enough anymore to talk the talk. You have to be able to walk the walk. You have to be able to show up. But remember too that it's not just showing up, it is embodying that energy. How are you showing up? Because how you show up is an expression of your soul self. Okay? We talk about that in our soul path readings and our sacred union and ascension energy updates. But I just wanted to bring it up again because that's going to be really important, especially going into this new year. How are you showing up, and having discernment for how other people are showing up? Are people embodying that energy? Are they embodying that love? Are they embodying that unity? Are they embodying that acceptance and inclusivity? So those are two examples of, in very real time, how we are experiencing what we channeled back in 2024. Social media platforms, technology, innovation for the benefit, again, of the all versus the few. We also mentioned in that channeling food gardens on large plots of land. What I had seen and predicted was that there were going to be nonprofit organizations, could be one or two people, but I do feel like it's nonprofit organizations as a whole, as a group, coming in and buying up plots of land that is going to be for the benefit of community. This is, again, using discernment. This is not an individual or a group coming in, buying up the plot of land, and then like raising that land, or buying up the plot of land and using it for nefarious purposes. This felt like nonprofits who are buying up land for the purpose of well, it felt like food gardens. In World War II, there were victory gardens that were planted because resources were so limited, and so women would plant these victory gardens on their rooftops and on balconies, and well, they were called victory gardens, but they were food, and they would then share that food with their apartment buildings, for example, or with their community. I talk about this actually in my novel, that came through in my novel as I was writing that, a victory garden on a rooftop, and then they would share those resources with the other tenants of the buildings because everybody would contribute to nurturing that garden, for example. That's what this energy felt like. It felt like a group coming in with the intention of creating a healthy food garden that was going to help people in the area, especially people who maybe are not in rural areas, maybe people who are more in urban areas who don't have access to fresh food, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, etc. And so again, spirit really wants to discern now the difference between a corporation coming in and creating a garden like that, um, and a nonprofit coming in and creating a garden like that, because there's a difference, number one, in the energies and in the purpose and in the result of that. So I do feel like, and this is large pieces of land, especially where those large pieces of land might be used, might, number one, fall into disarray, is what they're saying, might fall into neglect and not be utilized, but also where those might be misused, where land might be misused. And so, food gardens, I feel like that's still playing out. I feel like I saw an article really recently, like in the last week or so, where an organization has actually done that, and I can't remember where it was. If I find that again, I'll put that as a resource in the description box. But we're starting to see that actually play out. This channeling that we did back in 2024. Um, we're also seeing an individual to community focus. That's part of all of this. We're also seeing a rise of the feminine energy and personal empowerment. And we're literally seeing that with regards to what is happening in current events, what we're seeing happen, especially politically, especially here in the United States. Um, Even though it looks on the surface like there's a lot of division and there's a lot of misogyny, what that's actually showing, it's shining light on the misogyny, it's shining light on the corruption, it's shining light on the old energy. And so as the light shines on the shadow, there's a new consciousness that takes place, and that's actually where the feminine energy is rising. You see a lot of feminine energy, or females specifically, rising up and saying, hey, we have rights. This has happened all over the world, but me being in the United States, I'm especially being mindful and seeing that, seeing how that's playing out. um, we see that in our politics, women's rights being taken away, and a lot of protests, women rising up to protest that, women rising up to say this is not okay, um, women rising up to say, hey, there has to be a balance between the masculine and the feminine energy. And that is part of the sacred union work that we do, and why the sacred union work that we do is so important. The sacred union work that we do is not about a relationship. The relationship might be a reflection, the relationship might be expression of that, but the sacred union work that we do is about bridging the polarities between the masculine and the feminine energy so that both are honored. And you create that wholeness, that oneness within yourself. You honor both energies within yourself, heal both energies within yourself, and then that plays out in the collective consciousness, that then plays out in your connections, in your relationships with others, and that extends further and further and further. So the rise of the feminine energy, everything that we talk about in those sacred union energy updates with regards to masculine and feminine energy, is literally playing out on that collective level. It's fascinating to see. Okay, so let's move into notable astrological transits for 2025. The first thing that I want to talk about, and the most important, is the lunar nodal shifts. So from July 2023 to January 11th, 2025. So just a couple of days ago, we were experiencing the lunar nodes in Aries and Libra. The north node was in Aries and the south node was in Libra. Let's talk about this for a second so that we understand where we were, so we know now where we're going. Aries is all about the individual growth, personal empowerment, stepping into your authentic self, and leadership in your own life. You were releasing codependencies like attachments. You were releasing people pleasing. You were releasing reliance on anything outside of yourself. That's where empowerment has come into play here. And if you were if you are an Aries, Libra, Capricorn, or Cancer, this was especially important for you, especially if you have Aries or Libra in any of your main placements in your zodiac chart, in your birth chart. You were especially experiencing this and especially feeling this energy. Libra is all about finding that inner balance. So Libra 2 is all about harmony within yourself. So that's 2 where you were releasing any reliance on the external and coming into balance within yourself, releasing that people pleasing and balancing that need to serve, or that need to give, the desire to serve or the desire to give, with also nurturing that within yourself. All about the balance. So from January 11th of 2025, this year, again, just a couple of days ago, into August 18th of 2026, the lunar nodes are shifting. So the north node is now in Pisces and the south node is now in Virgo. What does this mean? It means that we are now finding balance between our human self and our spiritual self. And again, if you've been doing this inner work on your ascension journey, it is going to be more effortless because you've already been doing this. You've already been conscious of it. You've already been aware of it. And so it's going to feel more fluid. It's going to feel more effortless. It's not going to feel as jarring as it might be for those who are maybe unconscious of their spiritual truths, who are unconscious of their own journey, who have not been doing the inner work. Okay, so if you've been doing the inner work, you're golden. You're good. You're good to go. It's going to feel a lot more ease. So this is a grounded spirituality. And if you guys have been here with me for a while, you know that this is what I am so adamant about. This is what we teach. We teach grounded spirituality. I've always said, we can talk to dragons and galactic council and angels, but that means nothing if we are not embodying that. That means nothing if we are not applying that to our human self. That means nothing if we are neglecting our human life. We are meant to be spiritual beings and recognize our spiritual essence and our higher levels of consciousness and keep connecting with those higher levels of consciousness. But we're meant to bring that into our human experience. We are meant to still enjoy and be human. And so grounded spirituality is what we are all about here. And that's what Pisces and Virgo is all about too. It's about bridging that human and spiritual perspective. This is a collective awakening and ascension. We are balancing that spiritual self with being human with regards to the collective. The collective is going to be going through. So I'm hearing the phrase rude awakening, and I want to talk about that for a second, what they mean by that. The reason why it might be a rude awakening for the collective, again, if you're doing your inner work, you're good, you're golden. It's going to be much more easy. It's not going to be as jarring. I noticed this especially in the spiritual community, and again, if you've been with me, especially these past 6 months or so, I've really been actively speaking out against some of these things I've noticed in the spiritual community. Because the spiritual community tends to avoid, tends to bypass, tends to dismiss the human aspect of self in favor of spirituality. And spirituality is a personal path. It's one in which you are finding and discovering the divinity within yourself, coming home to yourself, coming home to your own truth. And it's not about bypassing being human or avoiding being human. It's about recognizing yourself as that bridge between both. And so the reason why it might be a little bit jarring is because when you first go through your spiritual awakening, and again, we go through many levels of spiritual awakening, you can also step into spiritual ego. And at the higher level, even spiritual psychosis. And we have all been there. So I say all of this without judgment. We have all experienced that. When you're going through awakening, you start to see things differently, shift in consciousness. You see the world differently. You see yourself differently. And you can also experience pretty incredible phenomena. And so you can step into that spiritual ego. It's about grounding that energy, and that's part of your ascension process. It's about connecting deeper to yourself and grounding that energy, not bypassing or ignoring the human self, but grounding that energy into your human experience. And so anything that is inauthentic spiritually is crumbling. That again is Pluto and Aquarius. That anything inauthentic will be crumbled, will be destroyed. Essentially, anything inauthentic, so that the authentic will continue to rise. And that includes the spiritual ego. And so people who, especially, I talk about this too, and I think I'll talk about this later too, conspiracy theories. There is truth in every conspiracy theory, but there's a lot of spiritual ego there too. And so you have to ground it. Your spiritual awakening, again, you open up to new perspectives and new truths. And that's where conspiracy theories, they hold some truth. But when you go through the next level and the next layer of your ascension experience and you begin to ground that energy, you realize that you yourself are an empowered creator. And so if you are continuing to get caught up in those consciousness loops in which you can get caught in with conspiracy theories, then you're continuing to create that. You're just continuing in that loop. And if that's something that you don't want to experience, then you yourself have to shift your energy. You yourself have to shift your perspective. And again, that has a ripple effect. So there's different layers and different levels. So just make sure that you're not caught up in consciousness loops. Make sure that you're not getting caught up in another matrix by a different name, in the spiritual matrix, because the spiritual matrix exists too, right? And so that's what's going to be crumbling too. That's what's going to be shown. That's what's coming to light. And so again, if you're doing your inner work, if you're leveling up in your consciousness, if you're focused on your soul growth, you're not going to have any problems with this. But just be aware of that, because that's what's happening on a collective level. We're also going to be seeing more compassion and empathy as we connect to our spiritual roots. Pisces is all about spirituality. Pisces is a water energy, it's a depth energy, and again, being at the tail end, the last sign of the zodiac, it is spirituality at its core, all that wisdom, all that intuitive knowing. That is Pisces energy, it's intuition. And so you will also have heightened spirituality. There will also be a call to surrender more, to trust in your intuition as you let go of fear. I'm also getting the phrase, go where you're guided. So this is where it's about going where you're guided both physically and spiritually, metaphorically. Go where you're guided, trust your intuition, and take that guided action. Again, that's where you balance the masculine and the feminine. That's where you balance active energy with the inner knowing, the intuition, the flow, the guidance, the energy. That's where you balance your human self with your spiritual self. It is also Pisces and Virgo, the lunar shifts are also about spiritual service work. So you might be guided into deeper levels of your spiritual service work, into more authentic levels of spiritual service work, or into spiritual service work and mission as a whole. I'm also getting that it will be very clear. The direction of your mission or your service work will become more and more clear because you're getting to know yourself on that deeper level. You're grounding your spirituality into your human container. And so you're getting clear in yourself and your soul self. And so you're where you're headed and your purpose, your mission will become much more clear and also will evolve. So what you thought your mission was at one level of your journey may continue to evolve into deeper and deeper aspects and levels that you're called to. Okay, there's more. Neptune enters Aries from March 30th of 2025 to 2039. So this is a big transit here. Neptune is a dreamy energy, it's a spiritual energy. It's looking beyond the veil. It's higher states of consciousness. What this is going to be bringing in is visionary ideas, bringing visionary ideas into more tangible forms. This is where Pluto in Aquarius is really taking root here because, again, Pluto into Aquarius is all about innovation, right? So with the Neptune energy, it's having those visions, having those ideas, and making it tangible. This is where innovation is going to be important. And this is where staying practical and staying grounded is also going to be important. Again, Neptune is a very dreamy energy. So it's not enough just to stay in the fantasy. It's not enough just to dream. Where are you putting it into motion? Where are you putting those dreams into action? Where are you putting those visions or ideas into tangible form, into concrete form? So that's going to be really important, not just being in that dreamy energy, but being very practical, being very logical, and being very grounded in that. It is also about taking bold steps to realize your dreams. Leaders who embody spiritual wisdom and take action are those who champion unity. Again, we just talked about that a little while ago. This is where discernment is key. So you will have spiritual leaders come to the forefront now, but it's going to be those who are embodying that authenticity, those who are embodying that spiritual wisdom and taking action. It's those who are walking the walk, not just talking the talk. They are going to be ones who champion unity versus those who continue in the rhetoric of division. And division doesn't just have to be in speech. It could be in the way that they practice. We see this in cults, for example, in how you divide one from another. So that's going to be crumbling as well. So discernment is going to be key, especially as guides and leaders kind of come up to the surface. But we will be having more spiritual leaders who are in that authenticity, who are, again, champions for unity and love. Neptune in Aries also encourages a balance between the individual and community or partnership. And the way that this happens is it exposes the illusions around hyper individualism. So, especially in our collective society, we have put an emphasis on individualism. And we needed that in order to recognize that we are capable of being individuals. We are capable of being our empowered selves. But now it's about, again, being the bridge, about recognizing that support and community and partnership is also of value. It's the balance between the two. So, the balance between the individual and community and partnership. Um, this some other mentions that I want to say. Neptune is a higher octave of Venus, which is why that partnership and community is highlighted, because Venus thrives in partnership. It wants us working in connection with each other. Partnership, relationship. What is that? That is relating to each other. That is connecting to each other. We're not meant to be so hyper individual that we neglect partnership, that we neglect relationship. That's the whole point of coming together in community, is recognizing that balance. It's what I call it is we are all unique threads in the tapestry of creation. You've heard me say that before. The unique threads is our unique expression of ourselves. That's our individuality. We don't lose that in community. We don't lose that in partnership or relationship. Caveat, in the relationships and partnerships that are truly aligned with our authentic self, that are truly aligned with our soul, that really call to our heart, those soul connections that we are connected with, right? So we don't lose individuality, but we are also part of the whole. We are also part of that tapestry of creation. Neptune, that higher octave of Venus, wants us working in partnership with each other. That's the sacred union. That's the sacred union path of ascension in a nutshell. So, for more on that, you can either watch our Sacred Union energy updates and teachings in our Ascension Connections portal on our YouTube channel, or you can get my book, The Unity Code. I go deep into masculine and feminine energy, union energy, and what that means with regards to conscious connections with each other. Eclipse season 2025. March, we're going to have a total lunar eclipse on March 14th and a partial solar eclipse on March 29th. And then in September, we're going to have a total lunar eclipse on September 7th and a partial solar eclipse on September 21st. Don't worry about the dates. We will connect with those again as we continue through the year. But that's just for your information, just for your awareness. What does this eclipse season represent? It represents a focus on well being and spiritual health, mind, body, and spirit, all coming into alignment, which is also what our ascension journey teaches us. So, again, it's fascinating that these astrological transits are support for our spiritual journey, for our ascension journey. And again, if you're doing that inner work, if you're in alignment with your ascension journey, then all this astrological support is here to help guide you and navigate you further, deeper into that. When we see the chaos of the world, it also means a chance to go within, or a guidance to go within. If you are getting caught up in the chaos of the world, for example, if you are seeing so much on social media and it is pulling at your energy, it's draining you, then you're being guided to release that, step back from that, and go within. This is for the benefit of your physical and mental health, where it's going to be of priority. Your mental and physical health is going to be of priority in 2025. Making sure that you're nurturing and taking care of yourself, especially if what you're seeing in your physical world seems to be too much. For the past several months, we have been talking about keeping your circle smaller and how important that is. That doesn't mean isolating yourself. That doesn't mean neglecting friends and family. That doesn't mean refusing to network or meet other people or expand your community. But this just means continuing to build and nurture the intimate bonds that you already have, including that with yourself. Keep your circle smaller. If the outside world feels too much, your most important priority is going to be to your wellness, to your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, and your physical health. It's the energy of you can't help other people who are not helping themselves. You can't help other people until you help yourself. So it's that kind of energy. It's all part of the whole here, remember? So the most important thing is that you are nurturing yourself so that you can continue to support and nurture others. Again, keeping your circle small does not mean ignoring or isolating yourself or ignoring community or ignoring supporting other people. It just means allowing yourself to nurture yourself too. and to nurture the people that you are most intimate with. What they're bringing me is the word priority. It is about prioritizing, especially as empaths who have a deep desire to help the world. It is recognizing where you can be of support, and also recognizing that sometimes that support starts close to you, with your friends, with your family, at home. And that has a ripple effect, right? So right now we have the wildfires in California, and it is devastating. It's breaking my heart, especially for the animals and the wildlife who are suffering, who have experienced devastation of their shelters, of their home, who are separated from their family, and it can get overwhelming. And so for myself, I've been doing what I can to be of support, which is the fundraiser readings. But I'm also making sure that I am being of help to those at home. This could be friends who are facing challenges, family members who are facing concerns and circumstances, or even my community. For example, making sure that I am also donating to my local shelters, because that has a ripple effect too. So keeping your circle smaller. Eclipse season is also going to lead to breakthroughs in sense of identity and sense of self. Seeing yourself from different perspectives. This might be shifting beliefs. This might be senses of empowerment, seeing yourself differently, claiming aspects of yourself that might have been fractured or fragmented, all about viewing yourself differently. This is all about higher levels of consciousness. As you raise in consciousness, you will naturally see yourself differently, in a place of greater empowerment, in a place of greater connection, in a place of greater authenticity and connection to your soul self, to your internal, eternal truth and divinity. Okay. Final messages is a reminder that you create your reality. And as you are creating your reality, again, it's that keep your circle smaller. You're creating your reality that has a ripple effect, then it extends, it expands to create the collective reality. So as you are doing your inner work, as you're creating breakthroughs and transformations within yourself, shifting how you view yourself from lack and scarcity and worthlessness and I'm not enough or I'm too much, as you're shifting that energy into a place of loving yourself, honoring yourself, which enables you then to fully honor and love other people, respect, and taking care of, not from a place of sacrifice, but from a place of overflow. As you shift that energy from victimhood to empowerment, that has a huge expansive energy, because love itself is expansive. So it has a huge expansive energy into higher levels of consciousness, higher levels of being, and that has a ripple effect in your physical world. So again, when it comes to conspiracy theories, for example, when it comes to what you are seeing in your physical reality, if you are putting so much of a focus on that, then you are giving up your power. You are draining your energy. You are letting other people or other energies have that power over you. You literally manifest through your intentions and through your focus, through your energy, through how you view yourself and how you view the world. And so that change starts within you. And the more people who are experiencing this inner change, again, into higher frequencies of love and compassion, empathy, and acceptance, the more people who are embodying that, the more that has a ripple effect. That is how we change the world. That is how we change our society. That is how we change these systems that aren't working, or that only work for the few, so that it works for all. It literally starts within ourselves. It is not something that happens externally first. It all happens internally first. You believing in yourself, you loving yourself, you honoring yourself, so that you recognize, hey, this is what I deserve. This is what we all deserve. We deserve to have these resources. We deserve to have a community that accepts us, a community that respects us. We deserve to have relationships in our lives that honor us, that love us for who we are, not what we do. We raise our standards. We have healthier boundaries. We empower ourselves so that we can then ripple that out, empower others, and create that unifying energy. Okay, so that was our collective channeling. It was a recap of 2024 as we're moving into 2025 and what we can expect with regards to especially astrological transits and the collective energies into this new year. We're going to move now into the year ahead reading where again we're looking at all 4 quarters, what might be coming through. We're going to narrow this down into more specific predictions, look at the themes, look at challenges and blessings, and get a lot of guidance for this year ahead. Now, do make sure that every time we do prediction readings, they are just timelines, potential timelines, and that again, that power is not outside of ourselves, that we have the power to shift the energy and change timelines in any direction that we choose. That's why it's important to keep focused and keep your intentions on those higher frequency energies and keep embodying those higher frequency energies of love, of unity, of compassion for yourself and for the world. For those in your immediate vicinity and beyond, because again, love is an expansive energy, and so as we are channeling either for a personal reading or for a collective reading, remember that it is all based on the current energy that we're picking up, but that we have the power to shift those timelines collectively. We have the power to manifest differently. So, if you're watching this on YouTube, we will be back with the 2025 year ahead reading. And if you're watching this in our Ascension Connections portal, it will be available so you can get right into it. All right, I am sending you all so much love, so much light. Do make sure that you are letting me know how this resonates with you already. Leave me a comment. How did you like this? How did this resonate? And I am sending you all so much love, so much light, and so many blessings for your year ahead. Happy New Year.